Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt,
And I'm the Orbiter.
and welcome to, is it episode 11 now?
Oh, Jesus, I have no idea.
I believe it is episode
yeah,
11.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Is there any news in the world of Breaking Bad?
Oh, just that I'm busy as fuck for a couple of months, but I will make
Did
sure the
we
videos go out on
mention
time.
something about merch last time?
We did, yeah.
Wasn't, for Twitch people, I think there's a new thing. Did you say that that was getting set up, or has that been set up?
What is that?
A different chat room for dickheads.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just noticed the other night we had 7 people in watching one of our reruns, and they were all chatting away, which is great. It's good to have business on the channel, but they were being complete and utter cunts. And I know trolling is a thing on the internet. So now the mainstream chat room is restricted to followers who have been following for 10 minutes or more. But there is a second chat room set up because we're all into freedom of speech. So I don't want to ruin anyone's fun. If you want to go in and take the piss or be insulting or whatever, use the flaming room.
You can be a prick, just we don't want to see it.
I would say, though, if any of those people are listening, that the things you're allegating, is that a word? The allegations you're making came from your mind, not ours. Think about it.
Right. On with the show.
Yeah.
We are talking about drugs.
Drugs, man.
Psychedelic journey through breaking bollocks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that got deep.
Well,
I'll just partake of my drug of choice at the moment.
yeah, coffee is technically a drug. You do have a little bit of a history with drugs.
I do.
Some illegal ones.
So do you. So do most people in the Western world.
Illegal ones.
Illegal ones, right, okay.
If you're watching FBI, fuck off.
Yeah, you have no just jurisdiction here anyway, so...
I mean, they kind of pretend to occasionally. Oh wait, no, that's the CIA.
Cunts in America.
Did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah, just on the spur of the moment, which proves I'm not under the influence just now. Why?
Because I thought that might have been like a reference to something, but you're actually intelligent occasionally and witty.
How very dare you insinuate
I was giving
otherwise.
you a compliment. Take it.
Yeah, but it was kind of backhanded.
Exactly. It's the best you're going to get.
Okay.
Anyway, would you like to go into detail at all there?
What is specifically you wanting to know?
Sort of...
I haven't really dabbled for quite a while.
How long's quite a while?
Oh, a while. Being a parent kind of gives you other priorities.
Oh, right, I see.
And one of the big problems I had with being stoned all the time was, while I don't have anything particularly against the drug, I just never got anything done. Because I was just always eating or listening to music or just chilling out.
Do speed, not weed. You get more done.
See, I used to do that.
For the guidelines people and people flagging stuff, I am not advocating that you actually do speed. But
this is a kind of semi-humorous... I would say, actually, though, that caffeine induces the same the same physiological response as amphetamines, otherwise known as speed, just you tend to imbibe it in lower doses. So if you had a sudden injection of the equivalent of 10 cups of coffee's worth of caffeine, cups of strong coffee, you would get a similar physical response as if you took speed. I don't know how long it would last, but...
Yeah. Now, in this country... Well, let's go through the drugs. You have your sort of medicine drugs. They're fairly standard. Although cannabis should really, in my mind, be considered one because it does actually have benefits. And very little does it. And quickly, this isn't going to be... You aren't going to hear the audio of this, but we're going to just watch a video here.
Are they going to see facial reactions, or are we taking a break here to watch this?
We're taking a break to watch
Okay,
this.
we'll see you in a minute.
And we'll discuss what's in that. It's, for people that want to know, Adam Ruins Everything, the sinister reason weed is illegal on the True TV YouTube channel, although that will be in the description. this is an actual TV show too.
Yeah, sums it up really.
Right, before we start getting into discussing that video, recommend you actually go watch it and you might understand what's going on.
If you haven't seen it, stop, watch it now.
Okay. Brings up a few interesting points.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, how basically this says as long as you're over 25, it's pretty much fine because you're pretty much fully developed at that point.
Yeah, but it's a similar argument to alcohol, really. That anything that's going to mess with your brain when it's still in development is not going to be particularly good for you. For everything in the category of legal and illegal drugs, my whole philosophy on it is look at how its use affects your life, be responsible, and be moderate. It's like. But you can't do that in a society or you can't safely do that in a society where you can't get reliable information on what it is you're getting.
Yeah, I think it's much more dangerous if it's not regulated, and if we keep it illegal, then the wrong sorts of people are going to make it.
I was thinking about this the other day, specifically with they're going
to put bad shit in it because they can't.
It would be the same with any drug, but if you take marijuana as an example. Imagine if you wanted a pint of beer, but it was an illegal drug, so it was only available from illegal dealers. So when you went to get your pint of beer, you had no way of knowing whether or not it's actually a pint of beer, what there is in it, or it could just as easily be a pint of vodka.
Yeah.
So. There's no, obviously with a bit of kind of experience and trust between communities that kind of deal in that sort of thing, you'd hope that you've got a reliable source. But would it not be so much better if you could just read the label,
Mm-hmm. And also the video said the main reason why this hard line against marijuana started, basically head of Department of Narcotics was like, we're not being funded much, we need to actually make people hate something. They're like, what do people hate? Mexicans, of course, and Mexicans were associated with marijuana.
Guys, it amazes me as well that you could be arrested for growing a plant in your garden, which is a part of nature that makes you giggle and chills you out, and yet you can't be arrested really for having a deadly nightshade plant in your garden which could kill you.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're saying it, I can't believe it's legal to grow a plant, and I was like, wait, isn't nightshade legal? But it's not. That's really weird. Like, you can grow your own poison.
Yeah.
Legally, I think. We should probably check that.
Well, I think it's probably more about intent, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even in my lifetime, the laws and the ways of dealing with offenders have changed considerably. Fortunately, through a lot of it, the police have been fairly sensible. Obviously, they have to enforce the law to a certain extent.
It is uncontrolled by the United States, nightshade.
Yeah.
What were you saying? Sorry, I was Googling.
Just that even within my lifetime, the law and the classification for different drugs and the way that the police deal with them have changed quite a lot. But fortunately, the police, within the limits of what they kind of have license to do, are fairly sensible in the long run.
I do think it's used as an excuse for a lot of discrimination, particularly. It's hard to know what the situation is like with that because we live in the northeast of Scotland. Most people are white here. So it's kind of hard to get an idea of what discrimination looks like. It does that make any sense? Yeah,
I suppose. I don't think... Well, the other thing as well, I did hear back in would have been the 90s when I was smoking it quite a lot, and therefore mixing with some of the Jamaican community, should we say. One of them told me that can actually be used as a defence in court, is on religious grounds. If you're caught, or if he was caught selling or taking marijuana, he could claim it was a religious grounds thing, because in Rastafarianism, it's actually considered a holy kind of. It's a noble pursuit to farm and make a living out of selling marijuana, because it's like a revered substance.
Right. But then there's a lot of things that are shitty in holy books that you could say, oh, well, I stoned this gay person because the Bible told me so.
Yeah.
That's not a defense. You just murdered a person and you're a dick.
Good point.
I hope you're in prison if you did that.
I don't know. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that I just think we get wrong. Because apart from anything else, there are people. I mean, one of the reasons I had issues and problems when I was younger was not about the drug taking. The drug taking happened a kind of a mixture of recreational, but then turned into a way of coping with other issues that I had. And I don't think. I mean, obviously, they didn't help in the long run. But if the facilities had been in place to help with that, which they don't seem to be at the moment, it would have been, I was kind of reliant to a certain extent. I wouldn't have said I was an, what do you call it? A junkie.
Yeah.
But certainly I was probably mentally addicted to being stoned, just because I was stoned most days.
But then, if you're an alcoholic, then there's still no reason for it to be illegal.
Well, that's the curious thing as well, because...
I mean, with that, alcohol does actually kill people. Tobacco kills even more.
I do know a fair few people who would happily admit to drinking alcohol every day, and some of them, to extremes, like they'd think nothing of having a couple of bottles of wine at the weekend or whatever.
A couple.
In one go, in one sitting, rather than... Yeah, I mean, there's obviously people that drink a lot more, but...
No, that's a lot. That's why I'm saying a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's somebody somebody's mum that who I've known to drink 3 bottles of wine in an evening. Because you do build up a tolerance to it when you're drinking it all the time. But the point is, see, my point earlier about everything being in moderation and always being in control of or aware of the effects that any intake is having on your everyday life. Those people who drink every day or get drunk at the weekends every week, would they say that was having a negative or a positive effect on their life?
I think it would vary from person to person.
Mm.
Well, I think if they were drinking like really excessively, and they thought about it after, dealing with the addiction, that they might see that it was having a negative effect.
I think the big difference for me now is that there's nothing that I would particularly rule out. I haven't taken anything, or I don't really drink that much either, do I? I do occasionally at home, but for any intoxicating substance, I would just say now I tend to view it more as a social thing, whereas when I was having problems with it, it was probably the sort of thing, I'd have been skinning up on my own and getting stoned at home on my own.
I've not heard that one before.
What, skinning up?
Yeah.
That's why they call them skins, the cigarette papers that you use to roll up.
Right. He's a druggie. I don't know anything.
Not a druggie. I wouldn't promote or advocate drug use, because some people don't. Some people. I've known a few people that have had marijuana and it's just not agreed with them. But it's I know a few people who've had alcohol and it hasn't agreed with them, and they don't tend to bother. So it's. But one thing, I do like Bill Hicks' monologue on that sort of thing, with you know, when you get, especially in the UK, it's not as bad now as it used to be, but when all the pubs used to throw out at 11 o'clock, which is ridiculous, having licensing hours. You're not responsible enough to regulate your own drinking, so we're going to stop serving you this substance at 11 o'clock in the evening. And then, of course, everybody would be aware that they were going to stop serving, so they would be speeding up their drinking in the last hour at the pub.
Yeah.
And then they'd all get chucked out the doors at the same time. And then you get people coming out from all the different pubs. And I'm not joking, because I used to be a taxi driver. I used to see it every weekend, Friday and Saturday night, sort of 11, half 11, there'd be fights in the streets and there'd be police riot vans ready for when the pub's chucked out. And it's like, but Bill Hicks' take on it is you should just have people just smoking a joint instead of drinking alcohol in the pubs, because the most they would do when they came out would be like, if they had an altercation with somebody, they'd be like sort of, hey,
have a deep philosophical discussion.
That'd be it.
Well, they'd probably say some bollocks and then think that they're having a deep philosophical conversation. Maybe we're on drugs and that's what this whole thing is. We think that we're having a really meaningful conversation, but we're just saying a bunch of rubbish.
Yeah, well, I would say actually, especially with marijuana, one of the probably most risky parts of it is the way that you take it, because obviously the smoking part of it is very bad for you, as we know smoking is. But I don't see any problem at all with having some baked into a brownie or anything like that.
Adds to the flavour. It's like cilantro.
And I totally agree with you. I think it's disgusting that it's not available to people who science has time and time again proved it would help their conditions. You know, multiple sclerosis sufferers, chronic pain sufferers.
A couple of states in the US are opening up to this, and some even to recreational use. Although it's just wrong. In some states where it's not allowed for recreational use and it is allowed for medicinal use, I think there's a thing that it's a really weird, complicated thing. So it just doesn't really work anyway, because they're trying to make sure, just make sure you aren't smoking this.
But I mean, you know,
and also it's kind of a crime but legal at the same time. It's weird.
Arthritis sufferers, rheumatism sufferers. I've known people in this country who've been to the GP, and the GP has said the best medicine I could advise you to get is something which I'm not allowed to advise you to get, and I can't prescribe it for you. But if you know anyone, that would be your best bet, you know? Yeah.
It's a messed up situation.
And it'd be dirt cheap as well. They could tax it, you know. It's like, but politically, it's for a long time been a bit of a minefield, because any government that talks about legalizing marijuana, unfortunately, most people do fall for the propaganda that's been handed down over the generations, and they would lose popularity over it. So,
fuck them.
So, well, yeah, I suppose it's about when the balance tips the other way, isn't it? I mean, I
think we're nearing that. It's just
with everything. To be honest, it's like the religion thing, isn't it? The more information there is out there,
I think the problem is that sort of stuff would have been much more common. Like the sort of shit like I think there's quite a famous one. I can't remember what the program's called, but like it has a egg. They crack it and it's like, oh, this is your brain, and then they fry it. Drugs. Yeah. And that's completely inaccurate, because first of all, different drugs do different things. Some of them don't even have an effect on the brain that much. Like, if you take ibuprofen, that's not going to happen. No drug.
Actually, the other side effect of it is, and I'm not sure how possible this is nowadays, because I think they've clamped down on this as well. The worst experience I had with any drug taking was actually legal drugs, and it was at a music festival, and it was in the 90s. No, it was 2001, I think, actually, just the summer before I moved up here. Music festivals used to regularly have stalls that sold legal versions of drugs. It was called the Herbal High Company, and you could buy like bags of like 6 capsules, like just like big versions of ibuprofen or whatever, you know. that were called stuff like Space Cadets and stuff. And then it told you on the back what it was supposed to mimic, but it was chemically synthesized so that it wasn't within the legal definition of that drug. So it would be slightly altered so that it wasn't covered by the law as an illegal drug.
But does it basically have the same effect?
Well, yeah. I mean, it may well be, as I say, because in this particular instance, I was at the music festival on my own, and I took it and I went back to my tent in the field, and it wasn't a pleasant night. In fact, I was so freaked out by the experience that the morning after, I went and handed in my stash of marijuana to one of the security guards there because I thought the police had been driving around the campsite with their flashing lights on looking for me.
Oh, that's...
And I'm so gutted by that because I spent the rest like I met up with some friends the next day, and it was like I was just like leeching off of them for a toke on a spliff, whereas I'd like took loads with me and I'd actually handed it into the bouncer, the security at the gate. Can you imagine some guy comes up to you at a music festival and says, "I'm really worried that I might get caught with this, so can I just hand it in? Is that all right?" And he was look on his face, he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, Jesus, I must have been fucked in the head.
Yeah. Where do you stand on... Well, we know that... I don't know how dangerous heroin is, really.
It's medically as dangerous as alcohol.
Right. So... And tobacco's then more dangerous than both.
It depends. I suppose in the long run, maybe. I mean, the thing with alcohol is that when they've found people who've died of alcohol poisoning, by the time they've got to that stage, they actually find holes in their brain because it's what happens is the kidneys or the liver?
The liver.
The liver, yeah. Loses its ability when they get liver failure. It loses its ability to filter out the poisons. So essentially, basically, they get urine in their bloodstream, and that gets into the brain and causes cavities to form in the brain matter. So that's kind of pretty gross.
They still die.
Yeah.
It's
heroin's not something I've ever tried, and I'm kind of in a way glad that I never did.
Have you ever smoked tobacco?
Have I ever smoked tobacco? You
oh yeah,
I have.
yeah.
Of course I have.
I just sort of
not for a long time, but
yeah. What do you think that those sorts of drugs that definitely do have dangers attached should be illegalized?
I don't think any drugs should be illegal, but I think it's more harmful to have some drugs legal which are more harmful than some of those that are illegal, because it skews people's perceptions and makes somebody... I know society's kind of aware of the dangers of alcohol, but I don't think to the appropriate extent. You know, like I say, when you look on a Friday and Saturday night in any high street in the country and you see the state of people, it's like it's not respected for what it is, you know.
I don't know, but as long as it's not an excessive amounts, does it?
Well, do you call rolling around in the gutter and throwing up in doorways and fighting people in the streets an excessive amount?
Yes, but not everyone has that much.
No, which is why I say...
I don't know, maybe like bars should have a policy of like actually regulating what their customers drink.
Well, they kind of have a legal responsibility to do that. They have to refuse somebody if they believe they're
but then why do you still get to that point then?
As part of the licensing process, they have to be able to recognise... Well, just because some establishments are better at refusing people's money than others.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's always money, isn't it? Always fucking money.
And... you know, it's their business to a certain extent. If they think that you can get shit faced and still not be a danger to yourself or the people around you, then why should they not serve you? It's only when you're going to start causing problems that that it's potentially a problem for them. But the problem with any illegal drug is that anyone who feels that they have a problem, they potentially have a problem with it, if it's illegal, they're less likely to go and seek help because they would be worried that they could get into trouble.
And it did mention in that video as well that later it came out that what they were saying about marijuana was bullshit, but Nixon still doubled down because associating drugs with hippies and blacks who didn't want to fight in the Vietnam War was a way to vilify them. Do you think that's still done today?
I don't know.
To a lesser extent, obviously, if it is, but
I'm trying to think back because obviously my knowledge of the drug scene in the UK is quite dated now. But I suppose there would have been, among the coloured community, probably more of a tendency towards natural. Whites tended to go more for the chemicals.
right.
Whereas, it's a generalisation, I would have thought that Rastafarians especially would have gone for the grass, the kind of weed, the green unprepared stuff, but it tended to be the hash, the extracted resin that the white people went for back then.
Right.
But whites probably tended to go more for the speed.
Just generally when it's sort of like, blacks will go for this and whites will go for... It's not very reliable. It's more what your experience of it was.
Yeah, that was my experience.
And that might say more about the sort of people that you're around rather than a generalisation of the whole country. I don't know.
Oh, mind you, having said that, it was a black person that sold me LSD, so that doesn't really tally up with that. I don't think of him as typical.
How... do you know how dangerous acid is, really?
That's one I kind of... It's a potent, difficult one, that. It can cause problems, but from what I've read in reliable sources, it's more likely to be to cause mental problems if there are underlying mental issues already. But you've got
to be honest, that's probably the same with alcohol, though.
Yeah, with any of this stuff. I mean, I will say that of all my experiences with drugs, that was my favourite, if you like.
Oh yes, pick and mix.
Well, the thing about it was, it's just like it turns your whole world upside down because everything you know about,
quite possibly literally.
Yeah, but everything you know about the world and believe to be right is suddenly called into question because you've been taught all your life that drugs are really bad and stuff, and you just suddenly think, oh, hang on, how can feeling like this be illegal? It's like, it just doesn't make sense, and the way that it works chemically in the brain, it opens up neural pathways that cause you to have almost, well, I wouldn't call them religious experiences.
Spiritual.
Yeah, I suppose in a loose sense. But
psychedelic is probably more the most accurate thing, but that's specifically associated with drugs.
Yeah, but I mean, that whole thing that went on with the 60s and the amazing music that came out in the 60s as a result.
Half of them are probably on LSD.
It just enables you to just open up and suddenly realize that everything might not be the way that you assumed it was. It opens your mind. But having said that, it can cause big problems. You can't get chemically or physically addicted to LSD because it reduces in effect. Say, for instance, if you took it one day and then you took it the next day and the day after, each day it would have a weaker effect. But then you'd have to have a couple of weeks off before you...
I've heard about, for some business model, some dealers would, because they know that's a thing, give a small dose on the first day.
Yeah.
And then gradually ramp that up so it's keeping going.
But you see, that wouldn't be an issue if it was legal.
Yeah.
There are, I would admit, there are.
It is always a weird thing with sort of
There are risks.
Governments intervening in people's activities for their own safety.
Yeah, it's a nanny state thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes people are idiots, though. It's.
I would say it's more hazardous.
I would say, keep it legal and help when there's a genuine problem with addiction, like you would with. Well, I don't know if the government actually runs any groups for helping alcoholics beyond actual social services for people that are genuinely struggling because of their addiction.
I would imagine the biggest problem the government have with something such as heroin is where most of the opium's produced.
Right.
Again, it's a similar sort of thing to what they were talking about with the Mexicans. It's about supporting regimes in other countries. I mean, like Afghanistan was. I don't know if they managed to do it, but they were looking at hunting down and burning down a lot of the opium fields and stuff over there. And it's
just kind of weird historically because the British Empire kind of sold it to, well, not just China.
Well, it used to give it to babies that were teething,
but also pretty much sold it to China to cripple them, I think.
Yeah.
Basically flood their market with opium. I don't know too much about that, to be honest, but
there's all sorts of substances, legal and illegal, of varying different effects and strengths. I think for me, the general rule is that none of it should be illegal because it confuses the situation and makes things worse. It doesn't work. It's been proved not to work. The war on drugs just doesn't work. It's like,
right.
It causes more problems than it solves.
Okay, in the gun debate, when you say we should have, I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot of misrepresentation on both sides of the other side's argument in the gun debate. A lot of people for guns seem to think that people on the opposite side want a total ban. Very few do. They just want restrictions. So, because if you did do a total ban, it would go underground. Just like anything, really. Bearing that in mind, would you support restrictions for the actually dangerous stuff?
Well,
particularly if they could be a danger to those around them, not just themselves.
Depends what you mean by restrictions, and it also depends whether or not that would include currently legal drugs.
Including currently legal drugs.
Because that would necessitate stricter restrictions on alcohol. I mean, it's interesting if you go to any of the Scandinavian countries where alcohol is a lot more expensive, and especially Amsterdam, it's kind of almost frowned on drinking alcohol. It's almost kind of in the same kind of category as, well, maybe not quite as much as heroin, but it's kind of seen as
right. So instead of restricting it, maybe try and how could you promote a culture that's, not really for alcohol? It's legal, but it's not that accepted, really. How could you create that?
I don't know how, because I don't know the history behind those particular countries' development.
I imagine it's quite highly priced. Probably the reason for that is because it would be highly taxed.
Yeah. I mean, when I say highly priced, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure a friend of mine who'd been was saying that you could be getting charged 15 quid for a pint of beer.
Right.
Which is...
but then some people might argue if you put just taxes up on stuff like that, then middle class people and rich people can still get drunk, admittedly at a higher price, and also people who are poorer and are addicted, that might punish them though. It's kind of hard to balance. With alcohol,
it's another one of those situations that there is an ideal.
I would rather that there's
a
lot more just lax culture around it, because I think the situation in Britain is basically a whole work you just sort of like just get through the week, and then at the weekend get shit-faced, drink way too much all in one go. I think they have a hangover on Sunday and then go back.
They seem to have a better grasp of it on the continent, like France, and especially France, because they have like wine with meals, and it's kind of.
I think it's just sort of getting used to the idea that it's not a massive thing. I mean, it is dangerous in big amounts, but just a little bit's not.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that I had major problems with when I first started drinking. I
remember you telling me this.
Well, I don't mean major problems as in I wasn't an alcoholic, but I had no idea about quantities and amounts, and there were a few occasions that I got myself in serious trouble because, and you know, probably the nearest thing I've got to regrets at the time, because I'd drunk, you know, at the age of 14, I think it was. I drank like a half a bottle of vodka, not having any idea what it would do. There was another time I drank a whole 70 centilitre bottle of brandy on one of the music courses I was on, and woke up in a halo of sick. Just because at that age I had no idea.
Did you not taste it and then realise that?
I didn't know how it was supposed to taste or what effect it was supposed to have on you. I knew that throughout all my childhood, alcohol was basically forbidden. By the religious kind of environment that I was brought up in, so that when it came to the time that I had the freedom to try it, I had no education of it whatsoever, so I just went totally over the top with it. There was no knowledge of the dangers. It was just like, you know, I saw it as something that lots of people had lots of fun with, and I'd never had it.
Yeah. I mean, there is this real life historical example of alcohol being banned, the Prohibition in America. And
yeah, look where that went.
Yeah, that pretty much backfired. Speakeasies opened, a fair few owned by gangsters, so you're not exactly in safe hands there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. Do you think you should ban any substance or items then?
I suppose there's going to be a grey area again as with anything, in that I would say no, but then technically they are classed as poisons. Alcohol is a poison, you know.
And it's like a lot though. Like if you were like, so let's poison their drink with alcohol.
But what about arsenic?
It already has.
Or ricin? You know, is it okay to have those?
No.
Should they be illegal?
Yeah.
Or should they be legal?
But then you can make bombs with chemicals.
Plus, I suppose the big difference there is they can't really be used recreationally.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a hit of
So maybe
ricin.
restrict it to where there's a separate purpose for its use.
Yeah, I think that's the key is the recreational label. It's like, because recreation means for fun. And as soon as you're in excess with anything or reliant on it, then it's not recreational. Then it should actually be illegal. It's not Well, no, I think it should be.
Well, yeah. Because when I say illegal, I mean sort of you should be referred to get help.
Yeah, but it's easier to get help if it's legal.
But generally when it comes to prisons and stuff, I think that with most crimes you just should be referred to get help.
Yeah, we're not big into rehabilitation, are we? We're in this country, we're more into
I thought you meant
punishment.
us as people. I was like, yes, I am.
Yeah, no, but as a country, where, you know, punishment is the thing. But I was going to say, I suppose with alcohol, there is an illegal aspect to it because you can be charged with being drunk and disorderly. And there are other knock-on effects. If you're an alcoholic and you have to drink a bottle of vodka or whiskey a day, you've got to fund that. Which
to be honest,
can often lead to
there are
criminal
plenty of people
activities.
that are drunk and disorderly, and no one gives a shit. I mean, they might get
Because
pissed
it's
at them.
socially acceptable.
Like, if you go to the train station in Aberdeen, I bet you there'll be people chanting some probably slurs, to be honest,
Well,
across the train station that they just wouldn't do while sober, I hope.
yeah, ScotRail.
I mean, football fans can be like that sober, to be honest.
ScotRail ban the sale of alcohol and the consumption of alcohol on trains
On trains.
after 9 o'clock at night, and on football trains as well, when full of fans.
But then
there can
people will be drinking before
they
then,
get on. Yeah.
and they'll lose a shit ton of money if they don't actually let them on.
Plus, I mean, in an establishment where, like, for instance, if you're out for a meal and they're a licensed premises, they serve alcohol, you're probably more likely to spend more food.
It's a private company, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the railway the rail networks were privatised, weren't they? So
Yeah. Sure.
So you've got less self-control, I mean, the thing that happens in Aberdeen as well, and as it probably happens across the country, is that you get the pubs that are open until, I think, about 1 o'clock. And then if you want drinks after that, you have to go onto a club, which will be like 2 or 3 o'clock that they'll close. And after that, you have to go to the casino. When you've been drinking all night, after 3 o'clock, the only place you can get a drink is the casino, which is open all night. And people tend to stay out all night drinking and then go to the casino for breakfast. Where, of course, you've got no self-control anymore because you've been drinking all night. If you've got money
Can they not
left...
just go home at that point?
Well, they can, but when you've been drinking all night, do you necessarily have the best judgment?
No. Suppose not.
And especially living out this way, because we live outside of Aberdeen, I've often had the opportunity to go out for a social night with friends, and the last train back's at like 10 o'clock. So it's like, well, I either stay out all night with them or I book a travel lodge room or something,
Yeah, I did briefly mention how the criminalisation of drugs is used to target certain communities.
Yeah.
I don't get any of that, to be honest. It's all just fear-mongering and bullshit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's more the government or more the government acting on what the people are scared of because the past government told them to be scared of that.
I suppose
Or the government themselves are actually campaigning to be scared of that again.
There's a bit of a a holistic kind of intertwining of principles going on, because if it's a racist motivation that's keeping things the way they are, the problem, drug abuse very often occurs in run-down communities and the kind of poorer communities, which would often have more people
for historical
of race.
reasons, though.
Yeah, it's
Because
getting
we
more
were
balanced.
shitty to them.
But they would often have more
Then.
people of race because
Well,
they're disadvantaged.
not us, but-
they don't. They're not in general not as successful because they're not given the same chances. So they tend to be more populous within the poorer communities, or have historically. I don't know if it's still.
Actually, no, that's not true.
What?
That poorer people don't actually drink or smoke more.
Oh, right, okay.
Bullshit. I shall find the video for that quickly. It's
Are we going to have another video break?
Yeah, we're having a lot of... I can't pronounce the channel name, if I can find it.
Well, certainly smoking anyway. They probably can't afford it anymore.
It was an argument for universal basic income.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning this in one of our earlier podcasts. That's one thing we need to get on top of, actually. I've noticed when I've been editing these things that we very much tailor it towards our video audience. And
Right.
while there's not much visual going on, when we're talking about the audience, saying you can't see this because or what, blah blah.
Yeah, sorry, audio people.
The podcast audience are just as important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said if they've seen my T-shirt like the other week.
But that's just because for those people, I was wearing a T-shirt that
It's an
spelled
awesome T-shirt. Actually.
that spelt fiction out in religious symbols, and we said something about
of various
pissing off creationists.
Yeah, but that T-shirt would have pissed off Muslims, Jews, Christians.
Piss them off if they like. Christians wear like cross necklaces.
Oh, how sick is that?
What?
The cross necklace thing. It's like walking up to a cripple in a wheelchair wearing a wheelchair and a thing around your neck. It's like the guy was nailed to one of these things, and you're walking around with it.
I think I mentioned that in the first episode of Uncharted. Just going to quickly watch this video. This is an argument for universal basic income, the basic principle of that being that instead of having welfare, everyone gets a set wage for reasons that the video goes into. So if you want to watch
Scotland are trying this out, I think, at some point. Look into it. I did read something about this.
And Finland has put trials out and are implementing it, I think.
There is a thing about... I did read something recently about Scotland trying that out.
Scotland.
Don't know whether trials are already in place.
If you put in Scotland that's the first thing that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
4 local authorities tasked with this is on The Guardian, turning utopian fantasy into reality with backing First Minister and multi-party support.
Yeah.
A lot of people support it. Mark Zuckerberg, Stephen Hawking, rest in peace, Caroline Lucas, the leader of the Green Party, Richard Branson, Ed Miliband, former leader of the Labour Party. I feel like saying that because US people don't know who those two are. They might not know who some of the others are, and this will apparently launch this autumn, if this is in date. Where's the date for this?
Yeah, and
2017.
When I read stuff like that,
winter 2017.
It just strengthens my. I just think Scotland has things. Obviously, they have their problems up here, but I think they've got their heads screwed on a bit better than Westminster.
I'm going to play this video.
We'll be back. The state covered your cost of living?
That video is Universal Basic Income Explained - Free Money for Everybody ? UBI, and it is by Kurzgesagt. I don't know if that's Dutch or German.
You said that last time you mentioned their channel.
Did I?
Yeah.
In a nutshell is the... I think that's probably what it's meant to mean there.
Yeah.
Right. And what we're looking for there is, poor people don't actually spend more on drugs and alcohol.
No.
Rich people do. Several studies show that. And that's just... So I think... I don't know, maybe it's that police are just put more in those communities, so it sort of skews our idea.
Maybe.
Of what the actual truth is.
Maybe. If you've got more money, you've got a more secure environment in which to engage in those activities as well. I mean, it's different, like drinking on the street or, in a close-knit community where everybody's living in shoeboxes sized kind of apartments and what have you. But if you've got a big mansion, you've got a lot more privacy. Yeah.
And to be honest, there is still some corruption even in our police force. Actually, there's a fair amount of corruption, but...
Well, they're human beings. There's corruption everywhere.
Yeah. It's just not in places that you'd like to see it.
No.
So, and for some reason, rich people are given more of a pass, which I find annoying.
Anyway.
To be honest, rich people probably funded the people that put them there.
Is there anything we haven't discussed regarding this topic that you would like to?
Talked about alcohol and tobacco. and the general legalization of substances, talk about marijuana and why that's actually not bad. How do you look at how places like the Netherlands look at that and other European countries?
I'm not so sure about other European countries, but Netherlands, I mean, Amsterdam's traditionally been a destination for stoner tourism. I think they've tried to clamp down a little bit on it because I think it was kind of... The trouble is, you see, when crowds of young males and females go over to Amsterdam specifically to partake in that kind of thing, they take with them their attitudes towards alcohol as well, so they probably suffer more trouble. There was a move towards restricting use of the cannabis cafes more to locals and nationals rather than tourists. But I don't know whether or not that carried on.
Right.
But I think it's a good thing, you know, the cafes and that.
I know last summer, I think it would have been, we went to Turkey, and one of the excursions was a boat to Rhodes, which is Greek territory.
Mm.
And in one of the stores there, they were selling CBD oil, I think.
You can buy CBD oil here, though.
Can you?
Yeah, it doesn't have the psychoactive ingredient, which is THC. It's just got the...
I thought that would be restricted to specifically pharmacies, rather than just a sort of...
No, you
just
get
buy
it in like sort of health food shops and stuff. It varies in quality.
In those, so.
Kind of, but I think I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the female plant that produces the psychoactive substance. So I think the hemp and the one that produces the pollen is the one that, but that you can get male and female.
Well, some produce both.
Parts. I don't know if it's parts of the plant or.
Yeah,
I'm not a biologist.
I think it is different parts of the plant do different things.
Yeah. The
hash part of the plant does something quite different to what other parts of the plant do.
THC, tetrahydrous cannabinol. So I can't remember what it's
Cannabinol.
called. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Look up what THC stands for. It's tetra. It's something.
Tetris.
It's something. The tetra and the hydra part of it.
Did you just say tetris?
But the cannabinol's definitely in there.
THC, did you say?
THC, yeah.
Tetrahydrocannabinol.
Yeah, tetrahydrocannabinol.
Yeah, but you said Tetris.
I didn't. You said Tetris first.
You said Tetris hydrid.
The video will show the evidence.
Cannabinol.
Tetra. I said tetrahydra,
You said
but it's tetrahydro.
You said tetra to begin with, and then you said Tetris.
Did I? Well, we'll see. And I will. And I'm not going to eat my hat, but
the principal psychoactive constituent of cannabis. I'm assuming that's the hash.
When I was at college, we tried to grow some in our airing cupboard under a lamp in those grow bags you get from the garden centre. And the landlord saw it, and he asked us what it was, and we said, we're just trying to grow some like winter peppers and
CBD is cannabidiol. Cannabidiol. There's no spaces there. It is a phytocannabinoid. I don't think. Yeah, it's not.
Very interesting.
No.
Unless you're a chemist.
More of a biologist, to be honest, but...
Yeah, I suppose.
Biochemist. Sure, whatever. Anyway, I believe we have rambled on long enough.
Yeah,
that timer is probably wrong, to be honest, because we watched the video, but... Yeah.
We didn't get stoned on the video like we said we would. We had caffeine though, that'll do.
Yeah, that's still a drug.
That's been a long time.
All right.
It doesn't bother me though. It's kind of
okay. I thought we were like, I just need a freaking smoke.
No, that's what I say. I wouldn't want to smoke it now because I wouldn't want to get drawn back into the smoking aspect of it. It's the nicotine that's involved there that would worry me, because I'd probably end up smoking again. Yeah. In fact, there were times when I gave up cigarettes but was still smoking joints, and I'm damn sure that the reason I was smoking joints on a fairly daily basis was because I was hooked on the tobacco.
Right.
And I didn't want to have cigarettes because I'd kidded myself that I'd given up cigarettes.
Have we discussed everything we want to?
Have you had enough now? Are you trying to shut me up?
No, continue if there's more to say.
I don't think so. Nothing that wouldn't sound really druggy.
As if this episode hadn't been enough. I had no idea what you were saying in half of those things you were.
Be sensible, basically. You know? Look at the effect it's having on your life.
I'm going to quickly talk about something. In schools, drugs are done. I won't name names, but I do know a few.
Oh, I know that. I had a friend who came...
Yeah, I know you know, but... I'm really pissed that no one's offered me yet.
Why?
I just want to feel included.
All right.
I wouldn't actually take it. I would just say no, but I want to be asked.
They probably don't think you're the type.
I feel left out, though.
Yeah. You wanted me to edit this bit out?
No.
Because, you know, the day after this goes out online, you could be...
I think one person did.
Solicited to.
Fuck it. Anyway, I have been Firebolt.
I've been the Orbiter.
Very stoned Orbiter.
I'm not stoned, I'm just a bit tired from editing.
And...
caffeinated.
Yeah. And this has been Breaking My Laws episode 11.
Drugs.
What are we doing next week?
Hang on, I do remember. Wasn't it the games industry?
I think so.
I know fuck all about that.
Yeah, that'll be more of a one-way conversation, I feel.
Yeah, I can join in there.
Yeah. Sort of like how you're educating me here.
Are you wanting that to go in the video? The games industry is next up.
I'll leave it to you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. We'd really appreciate if you support us on various things, obviously subscribing on YouTube, Twitch, following us on Twitter or Facebook. We have a Discord server that you can join and talk to us and other people, and a website where you can check out blog posts.
And obviously this isn't free for us to run, so if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Patreon page where you can donate monthly and get subscriber rewards. We also have a Stream Elements tipping page where you can make one-off donations. The links are all in the description.
Farewell.
See you next time.
Don't shit yourself.